Coming up from the soil in Michigan's favorite Washtenaw County, welcome to the Entheo Show, where we discuss entheogenic plants, fungi, and decriminalizing the state of Michigan and beyond. I'm Jim Salame. Now welcome the hosts, Michael File and Colin McDougall.
Hey, everybody, to the Entheo Show.
How's it going, everybody?
It is March finally.
What's up, everyone?
Thanks for the intro, Jim, and welcome to the Entheo Show. Last week we had on Decriminalize Nature Massachusetts and also the Bay Staters group, and they talked to us about what was going on out in Massachusetts and how those cities out there were able to put through decriminalize nature resolutions. Today we have
a really fun show. I felt. I think we took a lot out of that we brought to our community meeting as well. So I'm very glad we had them on. I look forward to next time we talk to them.
Yeah, they honestly, after talking with them, we took a lot of their advice and put it into our community meeting on Wednesday. We'll get to talk about that in a little bit. But today, our guest is going to be Melissa Lavasani from Plant Medicine Coalition, and she was former executive director of Initiative 81 in Washington, D.C. And she's going to talk to us about how that got passed there and what is going on with the Plant Medicine Coalition. How can we help for Michigan?
Yeah. So big news.
Big news. Big news.
Yeah. So we just at noon today, Decriminalize Nature Michigan put out a press release announcing that they're moving forward to put language forward in the legislature in the state of Michigan. So there's a few things we need all of our viewers to do. If you go to the Decriminalize Nature Michigan page, you can like and follow them, as you always should, as well as the Entheo Show. But you should, there's a post on there with a copy of the press release, share it far and wide. But there's another post on there, how to contact your representatives and senators. It's got a simple how-to guide, some background information on some of the things we're trying to do. So you have some context and a letter template for you to send. So if you don't really feel like writing your own letter, you can use our template. Just enter your name, the senator, representative's name, date, where you live, etc. All the tools are right there on the DNMI, but we're really excited as we move forward in Michigan and being able to cover this each week on the Entheo Show.
Yeah, and if it was really interesting meeting that we had the other day, and that's mainly the action item that we took, and we were able to divide it into smaller groups, and from that I even saw posted today the Southwest Michigan Psychedelic Network posted a Decriminalize Nature Southwest Michigan meeting coming up a week from today, Friday, March 12th, and I don't remember exactly what time, but it's in the evening, I'm pretty sure. But yeah,
we'll be sure to share that on the Entheo Show page so anybody can get information about that as well.
Yeah. Big shout out to the West Coast Decriminature, Larry and Carlos and Courtney, and their help there too.
Yeah, definitely. And we filed as a ballot committee Decriminature Michigan a couple days ago, and so look for more information on that. Right now we're still focused on the legislative initiative.
I'll say we had thought about the ballot initiative, but we realized that we have good faith in Michigan legislators to make the right choice, provide the evidence that is there to support the liberation of these substances. So we have language that our board and our advisory committee has approved. We've submitted that to a couple elected officials. We're kind of shopping around right now for possible sponsors, but we think we may have found one and several other potentials. So hopefully that'll be in the news in the coming shows.
Yep. Speaking of the news, is it that time to give the news?
Yeah.
In psychedelics, I guess.
Well, we know there's a lot going on. I mean, we all know about what happened in New Jersey. They basically wrote something in a bill recently that decriminalized mushrooms and or at least made the offense definitely a lot less. And that seems to be happening all over the country. Vermont and California, both states introduced bills recently. It's something else we were talking about in previous shows.
Yep.
And I'm just going to read this. I had my eyes dilated today at the eye doctor, so I assure you it's not from anything else, but it definitely causes some blurriness when you're reading the news. The Washington Supreme Court removed the state's strict liability felony drug possession statute on Thursday. This law made any possession of a controlled substance a felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison, whether the person had knowledge that the drug was in their possession or not. In a 5-4 ruling, the court decided that the state's strict liability drug possession statute was unconstitutional, violating due process clause protections by taking innocent and passive conduct with no criminal intent at all and punishing it as a serious crime. In New York, a $10 million Center for Psychedelic Medicine is opening. The plan for the center comes from New York University, and the work at the institution will be dedicated to researching psychedelic drugs. It'll be run by NYU and will look into how psychedelic drugs can treat addiction, chronic pain, opiate addiction, and essential distress. This follows on from research that has already been undertaken by NYU into how psilocybin can be used to treat alcoholism, anxiety, depression, and how PTSD can be treated with MDMA. And you guys stop me if anything strikes you. Crossing paths, PAC yesterday. Here we go. Yesterday, Missouri State Representative Michael Davis filed House Bill 1176, which expands Missouri's right to try statute to include Schedule I investigational drugs with a focus on psychedelic drugs, including psilocybin, MDMA, LSD, and ibogaine. Representative Davis said many psychedelic drugs have decades of clinical research supporting their efficacy and safety profiles, yet the FDA has been slow to act to reschedule these drugs. And that's for the news. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that's really interesting. This is the second historically blue or historically red state, like heavily red state, with Republican legislator without much community organizing pushing, is introducing right to try legislation. It's not full decriminalization, but coming around to this idea of entheogens, and in this case, LSD, MDMA, really pushing the envelope. And I think this is really important because so often when we're talking about policy issues, we want to make everything left or right. And this really highlights that this is, in fact, a bipartisan movement. This is a nonpartisan issue. And especially in these times of COVID, people are seeking relief, and people are looking, our elected officials are trying to find ways to provide that. And so I think, what we're doing here in Michigan and what other states are starting to do is right on the right path. Let's get legislation introduced. Let's work with our elected officials because they're ready to do this.
Yeah, I agree, and that does show just that bipartisan effect. I mean, people are realizing. I think that, like you said, Mike. I think our leaders are smart enough to know, like, if they look at the research and they see, and they also hear, if you hear this coming out of Missouri. That's a pretty conservative place, like you mentioned, and it's amazing to hear it from them because that's going to spread like wildfire down there.
Yeah, and I think there's also in Iowa they have like a bill that was introduced to another conservative state, and I also like Florida I saw had one as well. So I mean, like you guys are saying, it's not really a bipartisan issue. It's just a general issue that I think anybody can, if they do enough research, see that this is something that needs to change.
Yeah. There are a lot of organizations opening up too. If you look up in Lansing right now, Lansing's opened up a decrim mid-Michigan
Yep.
group. Those are some of our friends up there. Uh, every city needs help. If anyone's looking to get involved, please reach
And
out to us.
Speaking of Mid Michigan, have we had them on yet? I don't think we have.
No, we
yeah, I
got to
don't
get
think.
them out.
Yeah, no, we need to get them on.
Yeah, they got a website up. I think they've got their social media set up.
Yeah.
And they're talking to elected officials. They hit the ground running and they are going. We really should talk to them.
Yeah, I agree. If you're in the mid-Michigan Lansing area, this extends like down to Jackson as well. Look up decriminaturemm.org.
Yeah,
MM from mid-Michigan.
I think currently the idea is kind of like Jackson, Battle Creek up to Mount Pleasant area, mid Michigan. But we did also have some Saginaw Bay City. So I thought maybe there'd be an interest in including that in the mid Michigan group as well. I haven't connected the two groups yet.
Awesome. We should try and get them on for like either the next show or a couple shows down the line. Return to the local stage, I guess. Been talking to Decriminature Massachusetts, and today we got Washington D.C. So check back up in what's going on locally. I think we're also supposed to have someone from Hazel Park group in the coming weeks too. There was
We haven't covered that on here yet, have we?
I don't think so,
No.
but yeah,
Yeah,
somebody go ahead if you want to talk.
Yeah, I think Hazel Park's another really interesting Michigan city. That's the purpose of this show. So we really need to highlight these things. Hazel Park had city council members reach out to one of our members, and they're interested, like they want to introduce it and they're ready to go. The city council is interested in doing this without the local effort even having really been established beyond one or two members so far. And that's really exciting to see, again, that our elected officials, given the proper evidence, are really ready to get on board with this issue.
Yeah, we have a great update for a guest coming up too. Ellie Savitt's going to be on here one of these days in the next few months. We can look forward to that, and we can look forward to Senator Jeff Irwin also joining us on the Entheo show. That's
Cool.
on April 2nd.
And speaking of Jeff and Ali Savat, is there an update on the Entheo Fest? Or do we have like a
Entheo
countdown?
Fest, yeah, it's in the works. We're working with some great organizers right now. We have some speakers we're lining up. We're really trying to make a whole day of it, a lot like Hash Bash is. It starts at 11 a.m. September 19th, which is a Sunday here in 2021. We plan on having music and some special musical guests as well. And then an after event that will allow us to congregate and just relax after hearing some great speakers and some music. So,
Yeah.
a lot of it hinges, of course,
Yeah,
on lockdowns and gatherings and
Yeah.
the summer.
I'm excited. I hadn't been to any of the meetings for Entheo Fest, but showing up to this last one sounds like great things in the works.
Yeah, it should be really good. We want to make it something that's successful for years to come, to continue on celebrating, our freedom and cognitive liberty.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, Plant,
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it plant time? What is the plant this week, Mike?
Well, I'm gonna keep it simple. Jim's got a book in front of him, and I'm gonna let him try and butcher this. Uh,
Yes. This is a great book.
we want to talk about yopo seeds. I believe we already brought up toad once, Bufo alvarius, but we want to continue the 5-MeO DMT and bufotenin discussion because we think it's a very fantastic molecule, and there's a lot of concern about sustainability of practice with toad. And so yopo is another natural source, the seed specifically usually used in the snuff. Jim, you want to try and give us the scientific name, throw an excerpt at us?
Anna Denanthera peregrina
I think
spegazine.
you're pretty close.
Yeah. Yep. And the ripe or dry seeds are usually lightly roasted and then ground into a fine grayish green powder that is often mixed with an alkaline plant ash or ground snail shells and other additives. Moisten allow fermentation. There's a Then you produce a snuff out of this, which they call parica from the sin. I've heard it called parica. I've heard it called hape too as well, and rape.
Yeah,
Stuff like this.
I've had some
Heard
of
of.
it with yopo in it before. Not nearly as intense as a straight yopo snuff in my experience.
Yeah.
But I only did that once and I was not educated. Do your research, folks.
Yeah, we're not experts on this at all or medical advisors, but I'll say with that snuff, and when you're blowing it in your nose or having someone do it, you have to really be sure not to get it down into your lungs or your wind passages because it can really mess
Yeah, a
you up.
lot of people want to use a lot of force when they're blowing into a snuff tube. They want to it's a really controlled I'm not good at it. That's why I don't self-administer very much. So I can't say I don't.
Yeah. So this grows in South America. It occurs naturally in Brazil, Guyana, Colombia, and Venezuela, and also some Caribbean islands. Have you tried this before, Mike? The Yopa?
Yeah. So when I was first getting into psilocybin growing, uh, many years ago now, one of the people I sent some spores and some stuff to returned some yopo seeds to me, and I made a snuff out of it. But I was uneducated on snuffs in the process, and so I said, "Snuff, cool." So it's like cocaine, and I crushed up, put it in a line, and I snorted it to a straw, and it was the most horrible experience to snort it that way.
Wow.
But I've also done the same with rape, and it's the same thing. It's not the proper way of administration, and getting a proper your self-administered V-shaped snuff tube or have somebody that's experienced administered to you, I think is really the difference there. Definitely some experience attached to that, but I was in so much pain, like I fought through having too much experience. So
Yeah, that sounds painful.
not recommended. Get a snuff tube. Do this right. I would love to try it again post toad experience. So as I would like to try synthetic 5-MeO DMT. Very interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't
Too.
know about the synthetic side of it. With hape or rape, that's usually a snuff made from tobacco and other botanicals from the jungle, dried out like a powder. And it was a ceremony that I did down in Peru in the jungle, where they'd have a long tube and they would administer it on you before the ayahuasca ceremony. about an hour before, and somebody would put the tube up to your nose, and you would have to close your throat to make sure that it would just stay up in your sinuses, and they would blow at a pretty hard force with a hard rate into the tube, and it would force it all into your basically your sinus cavity. It would feel like it hit your brain because they would blow it pretty hard. Um, and that would really do both sides. They start on the left side and move to the right because your heart's closest to your left side. And then you sit back on your mat and you feel really grounded. Yeah, it's mostly tobacco, and tobacco has a really powerful grounding experience. So why people could get hooked on smoking, obviously. But yeah, that's it really grounds you for that ceremony you're about to ride on for 5 or 6 hours.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for that insight, Jim.
Yeah.
I think just being with the Michigan Psychedelic Society, I think somebody has like brought it up or something or offered it before to me. I never have done it yet, but sounds pretty interesting. It's like a meditative, like right after that, like when you're sitting back on your mat. Jim?
We did it in preparation, a way to ground us and center us before one of the ceremonies I did down in Peru. And it's not, I
So
don't know what tribe it's from. At the time, I was with the Shipipo tribe, but I don't think that's part of their customs.
Gotcha.
no, I believe, and somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's more like Southern Argentina practice,
Hmm.
traditionally. But the one time I did it, like I said, with Rape, was actually in Washtenaw County. So there's definitely some Michigan psychedelic folks getting down. Um, what else do we have today, guys? I know we've got some guests. They should be connecting here pretty soon.
Hmm.
Trying to think if there's anything else going on in psychedelic world. Um, I read recently.
Looking up some rape here. Um, it's always good to have a book to open up and read.
Well, I mean, we can babble about the book now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how far Jim got. I made another couple chapters, but yeah, Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake. I think we're gonna come back to this one more time before we move to another book, but really digging deep into the intelligence of fungal species, and obviously the idea of like slime molds recreating transit systems is something that's been well disseminated, but talking about how lichens are formed and mushrooms communicate different plant or different nutrient information between plants, and really talking about the world wood wide web, as they're calling it.
The Wood Wide Web.
But I've always been fascinated with lichens because they're actually two different species, or two different it's an algae and a fungus growing together is what produces a lichen, and like the history of what lichenization meant, and I just really fascinating stuff. I'm loving the book. Unfortunately, with all the stuff DNMI has been doing lately, a lot of us have been really busy just working around the clock, keeping that ship moving.
Yeah, I'm about the same. One thing I was really impressed by is the illustrations in the book are actually painted and drawn with mushroom ink from mushrooms. Mike, can you elaborate?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of species whose spores or various pieces of them can be used in dyes and inks. But there's one specific species, Coprinus, no, not Coprinus chromatus. Anyways, it's actually a whole slew of in this Coprinus
I think you're right.
species.
Corpinus comatus.
Oh, it was Coprinus chromatus.
Yes.
Uh, so,
Like ink.
so, so there's a whole bunch of mushrooms in this Coprinus and Coprinellus sections that are called ink caps, and that's because as soon as you pick them or have left in the field too long, you see them turn to ink, and if you catch them at the right time, you'll just see black ink dripping off of them. There is a way to like clean it a little bit to make it effective, but I used to keep a calligraphy pen and some mushroom ink handy, but I'm not an artist. I really wish I was, but what I do like about this is me and local artists are working on a Michigan mushroom hunting guide. And one of the things I'd really like to see happen is all of our drawings be done using mushroom based inks. So that's something we're going to start exploring later this month more in depth. But little highlight that hasn't been thrown out into the world yet until now.
It's really good news, man. I look forward to that.
Yeah, me too. Maybe it can be our book of the week then in the future.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to give us a year or two. We want to like write the book in the field and do the drawings in the field. So
Sure.
Excellent. We should have our guest join us any second here, right?
well, we got to have more to talk about. Do you want to read this press release?
Yeah, go for
Are
it.
you a good reader? I can
Yeah.
read well, but I'm tired.
Let me pull it up. I don't have it.
Oh, I've got it then. I can do it. Okay, so for immediate press release, 3/5/2021, Decriminalize Nature of Michigan has created a statewide movement to lift legal restrictions on psilocybin mushrooms and other valuable naturally occurring entheogenic plants. As momentum for this effort spreads throughout the USA, we are ready in Michigan to introduce legislation and have begun a process of discussion and education with legislators, cities, citizens, and media. We have faith in our Michigan legislators' dedication to good public policy and believe with the evidence available, our efforts will succeed. Then there is the mission and vision statement from co-director Julie Barron. There's some highlights here. It says, according to massively growing collection of studies from Johns Hopkins University, University of Michigan, Imperial College London, and several other highly accredited institutions, these plants and fungi have been incredibly effective in addressing PTSD, addiction, and numerous other mental health related issues. PTSD leads to over 22 suicides a day by veterans of war. We must continue to care for those that have paid a high price to protect our freedom. With opiate-related overdose on the rise, new solutions that work need to be accessible. Goes into some Ann Arbor history, and then Washtenaw County. And then we have a quote from former Ann Arbor City Council member, Ann Bannister. She says, I encourage policymakers to take a serious look at this issue. It's an opportunity to champion what was one of the greatest accomplishments during my tenure on council. If they look at the modern research and supportive practices with these plants, which have been used for thousands of years, I I think officials will find countless benefits and solutions for our society. And then
Oh, yeah.
goes on to like a nationwide overview, lists all the cities in locations in Michigan: Grand Rapids, Detroit, Marquette, Mid Michigan. We're gonna have to add Southwest Michigan to this now. This
Hazel
is
Park.
very exciting. We're taking over the Mitten and the UP. And then, yeah, I think this last pair. Oh, yeah, we thank Larry and Carlos. We had them on the first show. And then this last paragraph says, we currently are seeking to work with Michigan legislators to introduce bipartisan language to decriminalize these plants and fungi statewide. We have filed with the state of Michigan as a ballot committee. It was a path we were considering, but we realized it best we work collaboratively with our leadership towards healing our veterans, elders, and those with mental health as one community. We are encouraging voters to, looks like we got a guest here. Maybe.
Yep, I think she should be joining us now.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. Where was I? We are encouraging voters to reach out to their elected officials and express their support for this issue. And then it provides contact information. And I think this is all very exciting. But it looks like we have our guest on, Melissa Lavasani.
Hey y'all, my camera is not working right now. I'm sorry about
fine.
that.
Good to hear you.
It's
Yeah.
all right. We got the yes reform for plant medicines and DC 81 up, so that looks cool.
Yeah. Oh, that's a bummer. Yeah.
Well, welcome to the Entheo show.
I'm sorry I'm running behind. My life is like chaotic right now, so we're holding it all together here in my house, but it's a lot of jumping around and a lot of phone calls, so I apologize for my tardiness.
You're all right. You're all right, Melissa. But thanks again for coming on and talking with us. So I guess we'll get right to it. Can you explain to us like what this plant medicine coalition is and how it like came out of the Initiative 81 that passed in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, so I was chairwoman of Decriminalize Nature DC. I was not your typical psychedelic champion. I have actually very little relative experience with psychedelics. I never tried it when I was back partying when I was a younger person. I had no recreational experience with it. In fact, that was like the one thing I was really afraid of trying, and I never did. And it wasn't until I was dealing with my postpartum depression that I was desperate for a solution that wasn't going to turn into years and years of trying to undo and get off medicine. And I had a couple friends that experienced that, and it was not a road I wanted to go down. So psilocybin and ayahuasca saved my life. And, the campaign was kind of like my heart and soul bare for everyone to judge type situation where, this message was really important to me because of my own like deep personal experience with it. But it was also, I also knew that to really reach the citizens of DC and like get our message across, I had to be brutally honest about my experience and put myself out there. And that methodology worked for us. We ended up with a 76% vote yes. It was the biggest ballot initiative win from any ballot initiative in the history of DC. And, our campaign was overwhelmingly positive. We had no formalized opposition against us. And, the feedback we were getting from the citizens was so positive that, I was like, well, we live in Washington, D.C. I look at the country's capital out of my bedroom windows. Who is talking to the federal government? Like, who's advocating for all plant medicines and all psychedelics? And why not have that be, me? I was coined the most normal person ever by the Washingtonian magazine. And I really think that my story was a very safe entry for people into the psychedelic world that had really little experience with it. And it kind of made me realize that this message can get across to anybody, no matter their perspective or their own preconceived notions about people who use drugs, illegal drugs, for whatever reason. If we could just break down this message into, people are suffering, the current solutions aren't working. There are potentially many other solutions that grow out in nature, and there's science to support that. And it was a very logical argument, and I think it's just a really effective way of communicating this. I think the psychedelics movement has amazing momentum right now, and I thought there just was this need for Plant Medicine Coalition to be that voice in DC to make sure our federal government is supporting this movement and adapting as it progresses, and creates, maybe possibly learn from some mistakes that the cannabis movement had. How do we make this equitable and accessible to everybody? So what are other ancillary issues that come with decriminalization, that come with the Religious Freedom Act, or Religious Freedom Restoration Act? It's like we are that voice for the people's movement and for, this industry that's burgeoning right now with all these biotech companies coming up. It's like, we have to have every voice at the table to ensure that the system that is getting created is fair for all.
It's really great to hear. And I'm glad that you're out there doing that in DC. What were you going to say, Mike?
I want to get back to Plant Medicine Coalition and, this nationwide effort, this federal effort.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to step backwards to some of the history with Initiative 81 first. Your group faced, similar to ours in Ann Arbor, the beginning of COVID times.
Oh, yeah.
And you faced some very unique challenges. In Ann Arbor, we didn't go to ballot, so we weren't collecting signatures, but I understand you guys had to get creative. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was my treasurer that started talking about the pandemic in February, and I didn't want to believe it. Because in my mind, it was like, well, this is like the one time I'm putting myself out there and I'm out of the psychedelic closet. And, I did it. I peeled that Band-Aid, and now like we're going to have to shut down. Like that was just, it was so heartbreaking for me because I'd envisioned this campaign that was, like I personally had been feeling better just from dealing with years of depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts. Like for me, I finally was at a point in my life where I personally just like wanted to be out there and talking to people and, sharing my story and, having banter and having people ask me questions. I was looking forward to that public facing part. And that's like one of the beautiful parts of a campaign is just that human interaction you have with people. And the connections that you can make with them. So, we were supposed to get our petition in March, but it was clear that things are about to shut down. And, we asked the Board of Elections to hold off on our petition because, we only had a certain period of time to collect signatures, and we didn't want the clock to start because we didn't know how things were going to progress. We thought it could be just a month delay, and then March kept being March last year, and April we were like, please don't give us our petition. We need to really reevaluate how we're going to move forward here. And Oregon was in the same spot as we were. I think they were already in their signature collection phase and it got cut off, but that is a statewide campaign that needed to get signatures all over the place, and they were scrambling like we were. And we came up with this this mail program It would require our campaign to lobby DC Council to get some laws changed. You know, in-person signature gathering, you have to have a signature gatherer who's the witness who signs off on the affidavit, and there's a certain procedure to it. And so we had to ask DC Council to change some regulations for us that would allow us to send the petition in the mail to households and allow the person that's signing the petition to also witness it. So that they could just sign it themselves and mail it back to us. They could also digitally send it back to us. So that had never been done before. So we had to change those regulations. And, you know, it was kind of a delicate dance because at the time, you know, they were passing emergency regulations all the time, but we had to be very careful with like when we interjected ourselves in the conversation, because we were very compassionate to the situation. Like there were people dying, people getting laid off of their jobs, their entire livelihoods are changing. And we didn't want to be like inserting ourselves into that level of discussion with our DC Council. But, you know, we waited until there was like 2 rounds of emergency legislation that had passed. And by that time it was towards the end of April and things had calmed a bit. So, you know, my argument was that our governments need to be adaptable, and you know, we can't let a democratic process kind of die with a natural disaster like this, because, you know, we're only going to face more natural disasters in the future with everything that's going on with the climate. We need to be prepared to adapt to these situations. Our federal government was in a very shaky place at the time with our last president, so our local governments need to have that responsibility. And that argument resonated with them. They made the change, and in May we adopted the petition and we mailed petitions to every registered household in the city. And you know, it was amazing because every household got a picture of me and my family, and a letter from me and testimonials from other DC residents, and we made it feel very heartfelt. And then, you know, we had detailed instructions and about how to fill out the petition, because this was like a new process for everyone, and there were so many steps to it, and we didn't know if it was going to work at all, you know, because it's like you have to mail the petition, and then USPS had been defunded and the service was getting really bad right around that time, and we didn't know what the returns would be like and how long. It was a complete guessing game, and it truly does feel like the stars aligned. But, you know, we did end up getting around 9,000 signatures via the mail. Our goal was to get 30,000 signatures total and have 15 of them be from the mail. But, you know, we were getting petitions well into the fall. So, you know, the mail service is just what it is. And, you know, I think that it was a great return for what we were asking people to do. We were asking people to read a lot and open their mail and check their mail. I remember there was times in my life where I would like never check my mail. And, you know, we were charting new territory. But, you know, I think that our campaign was filled with a lot of really passionate people. I definitely had a team of people behind me, just, you know, constantly encouraging each other. Definitely arguing with each other. Everything was like, you know, we were all super sensitive and stressed out, and it was such a crazy time and unpredictable. And, you know, after our signature phase, we entered kind of like the educational phase when we got certified in August. So from August to November, it was education, outreach, getting endorsements. So inserting ourselves into any meeting that we could over Zoom. It was like a ton of Zoom meetings. It was like every night after I was still in my day job. I still am in my day job. So I'm working like 2 full-time jobs. So like as soon as I clock out of work, I'm like getting into Zoom calls, just trying to get people to support our campaign. And it was an amazing time. Like we adapted to our situation, and you know, it's pretty cool to say that, you know, this campaign happened even through a pandemic. And now what I'm seeing, we're still in the pandemic. November elections have passed. The election on drugs was extremely successful. Drugs won last election. And now to see all these jurisdictions popping up, and now a statewide effort in Michigan, statewide effort in California, Vermont, I think is something, Massachusetts, like it's insane how many jurisdictions are, like how many legislators are hearing this message as well. Like Scott Wiener wanted to do this on his own. He didn't have to be heavily influenced. He read the writing on the wall. He saw the research and he thought, how can we do this in California? So,
right before you hopped on, we were talking about, even Iowa and Missouri, not full decrims, but Republican legislators without any push, introducing legislation for right to try. And that's it's fantastic to be alive during this time where legislators are, they're doing this on their own. So if we give them a little nudge, it's gonna go.
Oh, totally. And that's why I think like this was just the perfect time to create Plant Medicine Coalition. It's like, how can an organization in DC support this entire movement? In our state and local affairs office, it's like, it doesn't need to be, I think it was nice that like the DC campaign did get the attention it did. And, we had a very generous donation from Dr. Bronner's, who really put a lot out on the line and trusted me to do this campaign and, not waste his money. And,
ask that question.
Yeah.
You had, so you never had to do really a fundraiser because Dr. Bronner's helped you that much then?
Yeah, I mean, it was a hard time to fundraise, and we actually started to put a fundraising plan together. I believe that started in February, early March, but as time went on in the pandemic, it just like didn't feel right to like tap into people who are already stressed out. And we eventually did get like t-shirts and a store up, and we raised a pretty good amount of money, but we weren't required to. And I think that David really believed in me and believed in us, and he saw how symbolic a win in our nation's capital would be, and he took a risk. And I think the soap company and the hand sanitizing company did pretty good last year. And, he said that, we're doing great and I believe in this. And, like, let's just inject the money that you need, because mailing is really expensive. It's not super practical to have like my campaign be the template for other campaigns. I fully acknowledge that. But yeah, the legislators are seeing this, and there doesn't need to be this big expensive campaign behind it. It could just be a group of people that get together and continue those conversations with our lawmakers. It can be the psychedelic societies. There doesn't need to be this big hundreds and thousands of dollars budget. It could, this campaign is a lot about like the human aspect of us, and a lot of this work is just speaking to people's hearts and minds about psychedelics and mental health, especially. And when, you have places in our country that are just still to this day getting ravaged by the opioid addiction. Like, I think that really big problem is looming over us, and so much attention is going to the pandemic, and there's going to be a lot of mental health fallout from the pandemic, but a lot of mental health is tied to addiction. And, we got a real issue in this country, and plant medicines can absolutely help out with that. And that message really resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah, it sure does. Melissa, I have a quick question for you. How did like your group get started in DC? Like here in Michigan, we have like the Michigan Psychedelic Society, and we would meet in Ann Arbor, and it kind of, our Decrim chapter kind of came out of that. How did like people get together in DC and get this committee formed?
Yeah, so initially, I reached out to Kevin Matthews, who's running the Decriminalize Denver campaign.
Love Kevin. I love Kevin.
Yeah, he's the best. So we reached out to him, like, you know, he was in the middle of his campaign. So I was just like, might as well try and send him an email and see if he responds. But, you know, DC is pretty progressive. I mean, we were one of the first places to decrim cannabis. So I thought, you know, there could be an argument for something like this here. So let's just get the inside scoop on what's happening in Denver and just take it from there. You know, like I have worked in government for close to 10 years. My husband used to work for an elected official at DC Council. Now he works in the executive side. So we do have a network of friends and acquaintances that work in and out of government. And, you know, we thought, you know, we would just be the people that were in the background, you know, setting up meetings for the campaign. We never really anticipated us like running the show, but so we talked to Kevin. Kevin, you know, he shared everything with us, you know, all of their literature that they were using. And, you know, he connected us with other people that he was working with in the drug reform world. And, you know, we had meetings and stuff and things progressed, but, you know, my husband and I both have full-time jobs and we have 2 little kids and, you know, other priorities shifted in our lives and we kind of put it on the back burner. And then, you know, it's kind of always that thing. It's like, yeah, that would be really cool if we could start that. And what a great idea this would be. And then some of the cannabis community, somebody in Adam Edinger, who ran DC Marijuana Justice, who was the campaign that got cannabis decriminalized and legalized here. You know, Dr. Broders was involved with that effort, and, you know, David had reached out to Adam, and Adam was like, yeah, we could organize another campaign. But like, who would we do this with? Because it wasn't going to be the cannabis guy that's running the psychedelics campaign. We knew that wasn't going to work. So I think David talked to Kevin, and Kevin was like, do you know anyone in Washington, D.C. that would be interested? Or is there anybody that you know, any organizations you know? And Kevin was like, you know, talk to Melissa. So, you know, we all went out to dinner one night and, you know, I shared my story and, you know, we shared our experience and our connections with government. And it was just kind of decided that I was going to be the spokesperson. I was going to propose Initiative 81 and then be the chairwoman of the campaign. And it took a second for me to process that. I am not like a public person. I don't have like even a social media following. I didn't used to. Like, I was just like I always thought like my husband worked for elected officials. He was the politics guy. I was the partner that was at home, like when he had to go to events or, you know, attending his events with him. But, you know, I never expected that I would have to be so in the public, and it was a hard pill for me to swallow because, you know, I wasn't a member of the Psychedelic Society. None of my friends did psychedelics at all. And, you know, I'm a mom and, you know, a professional, and like, what would people say? And like, are my kids not going to have friends at school if I come out and be the front person of this campaign? Like, would people think that I'm just this total weirdo that's trying to harm my children, to be honest? And these are like the worst case scenario stories that was running in my head, of course. But, you know, no one like me had ever really come out and said, you know, I had this problem and I used an illegal drug to help myself. You know, it was a big risk that I was taking. And the very last minute I backed out. I was like, I can't, like, you know, I was like, if it was just me being single, like your propensity for risk is so much higher. But when you've got 2 little kids, it's like, there's a different set of standards that you have to kind of abide by. So I said no. I hung up the phone and I laid in bed and I just got so emotional. And I was like, I just made a really big mistake. Like, I feel like I have to do this campaign. And, you know, me and my husband sat and like talked about it for a long time. And, you know, I couldn't explain why, but I just knew I had to do this. So the next morning that was like the last day that we could submit the language to the Board of Elections before, like, that was like the timing, the exact right timing we needed to get enough time to get our signature gathering. So we were like cutting it down to the wire. And you know, I eventually just was like, there's no guarantee of this being successful. I might completely embarrass myself, but I know what I experienced was so profound that I need to share this with the public, and we need to change some laws so that people like me don't have to be in secret about cultivating mushrooms inside their homes, and, you know, microdosing, macrodosing, whatever they need to do to make themselves feel better. They shouldn't feel that fear that, you know, if the wrong person finds out, you know, they could lose their job, they could lose their children, they could lose their lives as they know it. And, you know, it's a very weird feeling to be blatantly breaking the law, but also for the first time in a very long time feeling like happy and joyful, and like, you know, being able to play with my children was such a thing. Like for a long time, I didn't really play with them or read to them because I was just in this very deep depression. I was a shell of a mother. And for the first time, I felt like, wow, I'm engaging with them. I'm talking to them and like being their moms and being very hands-on again. But it was like I had this shameful secret that, you know, I was taking mushrooms, and it doesn't need to be that way. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was actually doing the exact right thing I needed to do for my children and for myself and my family. So that right there is it. Like, that was how it all started. And it was just joyful, painful chaos after that.
That was
I just
beautiful.
wanna ask, yeah, that is beautiful, Melissa. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Do you mind talking about any resistance you did receive once you stepped out from, you know, the political side? You know, they changed laws so you could do that, a ballot initiative. I think that's amazing. What kind of obstacles did you run into from politicians and from like neighbors or people from school?
You know, it was interesting. I thought the other parents at school would be the tough ones to crack, but they were the first ones that wanted to talk about it. Excuse me. You know, I'm discovering a lot of moms that I didn't know prior to this. A lot of them are medicated right now on various pharmaceuticals for various issues of anxiety and depression. A lot of people came out of their own closets to me. So that part was like the beautiful part of it. The people that finally felt open to just say, yeah, I deal with anxiety or whatever. The resistance didn't really come until, because, you know, we had multiple periods where somebody could file a formal opposition against us at the Board of Elections. And, you know, some of those scenarios would have to have ended in a lawsuit, and, you know, it would have been kind of a terrible situation to be in. But we tried to tread very carefully. I did initially explored the idea of having one of the legislators have their own language that they circulate through DC Council, but, you know, I don't think the issue, like, when the campaign started, you know, there wasn't a base of knowledge about psychedelics here. There is like a subculture of people here that, you know, are openly into psychedelics. They have a festival called Catharsis on the Mall here. It's basically like a Burning Man amongst the national monuments, and it's actually quite an interesting setting.
When is that?
It's normally, I think it might be is it in June or April?
Seen videos of it before.
Yeah, it's literally they burn. It's art everywhere. It's literally a mini Burning Man. So, you know, they exist, but it's not a super big population of people. It's not like it is on the West Coast. So people were like, oh, I don't know if I want to take up this issue. Like, this is not my thing right now. And, you know, that's fine. So we kind of laid off of DC Council for a while as we're getting the ballot initiative up and running. But, you know, we were just really fortunate that we could make the argument to DC Council to change the regulations for us to mail. I think that I was dead set on seeing this campaign through to November, and I honestly was like, I'm putting my all into this, and I'm going to make sure we survive through every obstacle that comes our way. So I just kept being, when the time was right, I was not in their face, but I was in their ear on a regular basis, talking about our democracy and talking about how democratic processes are really important. And, this is a really important thing that our city does. And this addresses many issues that our city is facing right now. And the voters need, the election's going to happen in November. And, whether the pandemic's here or not. And this should be an issue that DC voters get to vote on. So, it was nice. The first part of our signature gathering was the mail-in portion, but, we started to open up into phase 2 and 3, where we did feel comfortable to be out in the public getting signatures. We hired a health and safety officer who kind of helped us develop our COVID protocols. So we started with setting up outside grocery stores, and because that's where one of the only places people were lining up and outside in public. And that was pretty good. It was like, I think that people were eager to have human to human interaction at that time. So we got pretty good participation in it, but it pales in comparison to traditional signature gathering, where you're like standing outside a metro and there's like lines and lines of people coming out, and you're just getting them as they come out. So it was a slow go for a while, but our conversations there were relatively positive. There was some opposition from people who were like, they don't want more drugs in their neighborhood, or people that would laugh and think this is like a fringe issue and just not really sit and listen to you talk about it. But the vast majority of the public, when you were having that one-on-one interaction with them, were really positive about this. I did run into some opposition when I was trying to get DC Democratic Party endorsement. I really wanted that endorsement. It's they have a very big presence here in the city, and I knew that if we got that would almost guarantee our win in November. And I'm a member of the Democratic Party, and I thought, well, they'll be nice to me. And in general, they were. I can't say it was contentious at all, but there was a moment where there were some of maybe the old school folks were, they were opposed to this idea. It was too crazy for them. Again, no more drugs in the neighborhood. DC has had terrible problems with crack, BCP, heroin. So people hear drugs here and sometimes are like, no, like that drugs have ruined my family. Why would I want more around me? Which is, very valid perspective. But a lot of people were like, you're going to have psychedelic mushrooms in your house, and your children are going to get into them and they're going to trip. And what does that do to their brain? Like just total doomsday scenarios. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of just like taking a beating one after another, trying to make a point. But then I think the silent majority kind of stepped up and, saved me from drowning completely. And they ended up endorsing. It was pretty good. It was like 75% in support. So they ended up endorsing us, which was amazing. But that was like the hardest opposition I had faced. Our campaign was overwhelmingly positive. I think we were very calculated in how we were communicating with people and our branding and what we felt like to people. It is a very sensational topic, and, having a mother running this campaign who's professional day job, I think that the whole point of all of this was to normalize it and have like civil conversations about our laws around drugs and how we treat mental health in this country. And I think it was really hard for people to build that strong opposition against us because of that.
Right, and it's really hard to like debunk a lot of the research that's going on out there. And
yeah, I mean, especially Johns Hopkins is, everyone in DC knows about Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. I mean,
right.
I'm sure a lot of people make the trip up there just to go there. So the moment you say they have their own research unit dedicated to this, dedicated to research with psilocybin, and you start telling them about the results of some of their early studies, it's so hard to argue with that.
I know. And a lot of your story, it seems to like echo a lot of what we kind of went through here in Michigan, like with Julie being the executive director.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Chuck Ream. He was like this marijuana guy that had like a long history of like being the marijuana leader in Ann Arbor and all the state of Michigan. Yeah. So it was really kind of strange how like parallel almost it seems like our campaigns for this have been.
Yeah, well, the cannabis community has kind of laid the foundation for this. You know, they have made that first breakthrough. It makes sense that all of this aligns. And I think that, you know, after psychedelics get to a point, and maybe there's going to be some overlap, but, you know, I think this initiates a conversation of like our drug laws as a whole, like how we are treating people who do drugs and have addiction issues. It like, I think that this is a beautiful start to having that conversation with our lawmakers. Like how we all know the war on drugs was completely false from the beginning. No one ever really believed that the drugs were evil. These laws were designed to demonize certain people, and it's been admitted by the people that created it. And it's ridiculous that we continue to implement these archaic laws. And you know, I hope this leads to some kind of sweeping change in how we view drugs in general and just health and well-being. Because the road we're going down now it's really not working for us. And it's like kind of to me, it's an economic issue. It is like, you know, if you have a mental health issue that is unresolved, that affects the jobs you can get, that affects the partner you have, it affects everything in your life. And if you think, if I could just resolve this issue, how much of like a productive member of society can it be? What else can I add to this world? You know, it's almost like our national security is on the line because we're all suffering so much and we have no solutions that are legal right now that are effective and long lasting. And I'm just hoping that this dialogue turns into that, how we look at our relationship with our laws and our citizens.
Yeah. So, Melissa, what's going on with Plant Medicine Coalition, since we're talking about like our national insecurities and whatnot? And
yeah, it's crazy to start up an organization. It's a lot of work, but you know, aside from like the organizational things that we're still working out, you know, we're in appropriation season right now with Congress, and there's just been like there's a new Senate, new House, new president. It's kind of chaotic, but you know, the goal is to reach out to 100 members of Congress and, you know, have an ask of $100 million towards federal research of psychedelics. So actual federal money going as grants through NIH to institutions to build that body of data that the federal government's going to look at and, you know, really base a lot of their changes on. You know, the ultimate goal is to deschedule and just restructure everything. you know, hopefully get rid of like this scheduling system and how it looks entirely. And, you know, that is the long-term goal. And we think that a really safe entry point for our lawmakers is research. You know, we're not asking to change the criminal code. You know, we're not asking for anything sweeping just yet. Like, just start with the research and see for yourselves what that says. And, you know, we think we can garner bipartisan support. We're looking for a champion right now, and we're hopeful within the next 2 years to hopefully get something. But it's great. These conversations have been really positive in Congress. We started engaging with them during our campaign because Congress is oversight. DC is not a state, so Congress is oversight of our budget and our laws. And we knew that we needed to at least engage with them and make sure they were not interfering in the democratic process here in DC. We did have one House member verbally oppose our candidate. That was somebody I should have mentioned before. I totally forgot about him. Andy Harris, who said that, we can't have people hallucinating, driving around the district, and DC must be stopped. But ultimately, he couldn't do anything to stop our initiative. It was a complete overreach because we were deprioritizing within the police department. And actually, he's the reason why we can't fully decriminalize as a city, because he every year has imposed a rider on our budget that we cannot change any laws around Schedule I drugs. And he initially did that to stop DC from having a legal cannabis market.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we had legalized cannabis, but the regulations hadn't gone through yet. And we were only allowed to home grow. And he stepped in and stopped us from creating that market. So, DC's been operating. I mean, there's people that sell weed here. Like, you can openly there's some shops where you go to a store and you buy a pair of socks for $50 and you get a free gift of $50 worth of weed. So there's like years of revenue that DC's losing because this representative from the Eastern Shore of Maryland is morally opposed to cannabis. So, but his opposition to cannabis meant, we could only deprioritize within the police department. And him trying to stop it, like, he had no support in it. And, we had talked to other members in the committee, and we had done our due diligence. So we were having conversations about plant medicines with them last year. And when we started to tease the idea of plant medicine coalition, the response was positive. It's so hard to compete with literally everything that's on Congress members' plates right now, with the pandemic and with the economic crisis we're facing. But like, there is an argument here that Americans are suffering right now. And I think that we're all in survival mode at this current moment, in various stages of survival mode. But after the pandemic is gone, whenever that may be, we will really feel the blow of mental health issues, I think. And how is this country going to prepare for that? And how is this country finally going to resolve this opioid addiction and, just like massive suffering everywhere? There is research, and that's our goal with the research. There's research and clinical trials that have proved that these are effective. And, it's positive, and I'm really hopeful that we can get something moving in Congress and further this conversation. On the state side, we have networks all over the country. I think, there's people discussing a New York effort that we may potentially help out with, but people are interested and, reach out all the time. How can I start this with my city? And, our goal is just to give people maybe a little bit more political knowledge than they had before, or maybe a connection. My husband's from Alabama, so we're connected in the South. So hopefully, a lot of the southern states are kind of jumping on board right now. I saw Alabama has a cannabis bill on the docket as well, which is extremely exciting.
Yeah, I saw that the other day too.
Yeah, and like New Jersey did did cannabis and psilocybin at the same time. So it's like there's gonna be like the momentum is there, and it's awesome to see it happen. And we just want to support, like, So we have multiple functions. Like we want to support local and state efforts because, that's an argument we make with our federal lawmakers. They will ask, why should I care about these issues? And if we're talking to a rep from Michigan, for example, we say, look at your state, your state has organized this amazing community group that's actually taking action here, and your constituents care about this. So you need to care about this. It just bolsters our argument with the federal government. And that's why we wanted to do a coalition. It's like a kind of umbrella agency where all the players in the psychedelic community have a place where when we start having hearings again, people can come to DC and testify and talk to the lawmakers in their jurisdiction. We are laying the groundwork for having like really hopefully constructive conversations with our lawmakers about psychedelic reform.
So what can just the average person do right now at the federal level in terms of writing a letter? I mean, I know stories are always useful, but do you have a recommendation for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the storytelling in this entire movement is probably one of the most important pieces of it. Of course, the data and the research is super important, but like I said, this is a human issue. And I think to get people to like kind of open their hearts to this idea, you have to have a lot of personal stories. I think calling and writing your members and senators in Congress is always going to help. Get in their ear and have them know that you're a constituent of theirs and this is an issue that matters to you. I think that it's going to be a combination of a bunch of things, but there's definitely going to have to be a real community element to this where people who have never been activated before are activated and are sharing their stories and not doing it anonymously anymore. Like it's okay. We had that element of our campaign where we wanted people to tell stories, and I was like, well, I don't want to ask anyone to reveal their identity, but like it just made so much sense that it was like, let's just ask if they want to identify themselves. Let's give them the option. And people were identifying themselves, and people were proud to say, I overcame something terrible and I did it with the help of plant medicines. And that's part of the cultural change that has to happen in this country. And I think that was maybe what's missing from cannabis movement. I think that the cannabis movement assumed that the cultural change had already happened, but it didn't happen in the places it needed to happen, like in government, like in police departments. I know that DC's rate of cannabis arrests is still really high, and it's targeted at people of color. So that cultural shift didn't happen within the department. And that's really important for true change, true lasting change, is to make sure you're changing the hearts and minds. So, talk to your lawmakers. Their phone numbers are on their websites. Their emails are on their websites. Somebody reads those emails, maybe not them, but a staffer will. And, that having this subject matter in their face is in the right way, with the right stories and the support of science, it's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Sooner than later too. Like
Yes.
Right before we know it.
Yes.
Just
Look how much progress has happened in the last 2 years alone.
Exactly.
When I was like microdosing on my own, I was writing it down in a notebook and weighing it on a scale, and I was like writing how I felt and what was good, what was bad. But now there's like apps that help you out, and there's just so much more information out there. There's so much more research. I feel like there's a new research institution announced like every month. It's amazing to see how quickly it's happening.
What app are you talking about for tracking experiences?
I think that Paul Stamets might have released an app, and I forgot what it was called. It's not anything related to his company, but it was called something completely different. Maybe I can Google it. But like you log how much you take and how you feel, and it was pretty interesting.
I was gonna say there's that one app, Mike, called Fireside.
Yeah, Fireside. We're trying to get them on a show soon. They just contacted DNMI about some other things. So we're going to try and get them on here soon, because that's an interesting service that, I think is going to be useful as we make the shift. The ability to have a phone number that anybody can call if they're having a challenging experience.
Oh my God, it's so important to have that support there. Because this thing is taking off really quickly, and you hope you can educate everybody, but there's people that are going to slip up on the way. I mean, I think I was really fortunate in that, I had my husband who was super supportive of me, and he grown up with mushroom, like his friends would eat mushrooms. They would go out to the cow pastures where they lived, and that's what they would do. They'd go eat mushrooms and go see music. And he knew he had that basis of information, but when I'm talking about this with anyone, I'm like, I do not recommend doing what I did, because not everybody had the support that I had, and it is a risk that you're taking. So what Fireside is providing is super important for people who are novices, or even if you're not a novice and you have a bad trip and you don't know what you're doing and you feel panicked. Like, how nice is that to have somebody on the line to just talk you through that? Because that's really all you need, is someone to remind you that you're okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're about to wrap up here. We're running out of time. It's been really fantastic having you on here, Melissa. I hope we get to talk to you again, hear more from Plant Medicine Coalition.
One quick question, Melissa. What happens in 10 days in Washington, D.C.?
Oh, Initiative 81 is official. It's officially law. That is it had to be under, goes under congressional passive review. And initially the date was March 19th, but they moved it up because they had some extra days in session with the second impeachment. So March 15th is when it's official.
And how do you get a hold of Plant Medicine Coalition?
You can go to plantmedicinecoalition.org, or you can email us at info@plantmedicinecoalition. I get all those emails, so I do read all of them. I try to respond as much as I can. But yeah, we're on all the socials. You can find us there, like us, share our content. We're out now. It's official.
Awesome. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Mike?
No, it's been very great having you on here. You were talking about, it's very, when I brought up the letter thing, just putting it in their ear. I just sent letters last night. Nice. And I got a letter from a staffer, which is pretty standard. I send a lot of letters. I'm pretty active like that.
Yeah.
But usually you get that generic response. This was clearly freshly written in response to what he read in my letter.
Yeah.
And he said that he was going to take my letter to the senator. Usually you don't get that. Usually you get Senator so-and-so's office stance is this is the current legal status, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so I'm really hoping to get an actual response on that soon. So write a letter.
Yes, it works. If you do it enough, what's the worst that happens to you is you get a generic response or you get no response. You got to keep trying though. So that's awesome that you got finally.
Yeah, and in our action hours, we'll definitely focus eventually on the House of Representatives and our senators, and get them to write letters to them too.
Yeah.
Uh,
Awesome.
I know
Let
I had
us know
I
if
had
can help with anything in Michigan. We're happy to, if you all need help with anything. It's really exciting, and I'm very grateful for you all having me here. This has been great.
Well, it's been absolutely wonderful having you on. I didn't realize, I knew you had the Initiative 81 experience. I didn't realize how much is going on with Plant Medicine Coalition and a federal effort. And
Yeah.
so this has been really exciting and informative.
Yeah, great. Good. I'm glad.
Well, thank you, Melissa.
Yeah,
We
thank you.
appreciate you.
All right. Talk to y'all later.
All right, talk to you soon.
Anything else? Last thoughts?
Just that was a really amazing interview. Really good insight on how a ballot campaign works, and just good information about, you know, a federal effort going on, you know. And she was like, just it seemed like her story, like it just reminded me a lot of like what was going on here, you know. And sometimes like you think that like Washington D.C. is so much different than, you know, Michigan or wherever in the country, and it seems like just everyday people are doing similar things to us, you know.
You know, I don't think we got contact info for their organization, but maybe we can share that on the socials later.
Yeah, we will. I think she said it at the end. Maybe
Okay.
she said it was on social media.
Okay.
So,
She gave us some websites and stuff.
I forget to put in plugs all the time, and you know, those are very important for the people we're working with, and the things we're doing is how people find us, how
Well,
people
let's
get
put a
active.
plug on Medical Mondays.
yep, Medical Mondays, Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
Yes, Kevin.
Check out Smoke and Rope for Ryan Basor, and
Green Trees.
Planet Green Trees, Michael Comorn, or Reeds and Weeds.
Weeds and
Reeds and Weeds
with
gave
Shelly
a
Smith.
shout out. Actually working on some mini episodes, I think, with her, maybe on topics of psychedelia, mushrooms, and drug policy. You know, a few books in each category per episode instead of a one book episode.
Cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
We should have her on the show.
I don't know. None of
Too.
this is official. I may be talking too early, but
She does have some psychedelic episodes though out there.
She definitely does. It's a fantastic show. One of my favorites.
And is there any other podcasts we're forgetting about?
MICIA.
Oh yeah, they did. And
with Ida and Jay, and a couple of the folks there. But that's I forget what day that is. I want to say it's Wednesday.
I think it's Wednesday, yeah. And I was that reminded me of the 420 Post too, which is Rick Thompson and Mike Brennan's show. It's like and Jamie Cooper.
Yeah.
They all have that show.
No, I didn't stop smoking weed this entire show, thanks to the ruling. However, that's a lot of weed. That's a lot of weed. If you like cannabis, tune into any of those shows. But until 2 weeks from now, I believe that'll be the 19th.
Yeah.
See
you all. All right. Peace. See you then.